not hear very much talked about the international connectivity aspect in Myanmar. We have CMUI 3 providing most of the connectivity at the moment. There are some other terrestrial connections as well. But I think based on the very bullish targets that we have for the mobile operators to deliver 3G services, we're going to see significant growth in demand for international connectivity. When I do a lot of modelling of markets and demand, when you see 3G coming in, the demand for international connectivity will rise by perhaps 50, perhaps 100% per year over a sustained period. And I think on that basis, we need to look seriously at the international connectivity that's available in Myanmar today. So, gentlemen, I think before we get into some questions, it would be a good idea if you could just introduce yourself and your company, just briefly. Marut?
Okay, thank you, Julian. And good afternoon, Kalabab to everybody. My name is Varut. Representing my company, CAT Thailand. Basically, my company is working similarly to the FPT working in Myanmar. So we are the international service provider in Thailand, and I'm glad to represent my company and try to do my best to share our experience in the voice market.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Actually, I think mostly everybody know about Lily because it's a kind of sponsor here. Anyhow, just give you some brief about our company. Actually, we do and also positioning ourselves as an ISP, and also we provide our service via wire and wireless system. If you talk about wireless, we just use the mobile WiMAX. That's the part of that we provide for the consumer. And also we have the dedicated international link for the customer for MPLC or IPLC service for the enterprise customer also. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm representing True Group in Thailand. True Group in Thailand, we provide integrated services from television, cable TV, as you can see, True Visions in the several channels here in Myanmar, and fixed line, True Online, and mobile. And we also have True Money and True Life, which provide content on the internet and all the mobile platform. I myself look after the international carrier parts for True Groups. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to look first of all at voice, then we're going to look at international connectivity in general, including data, and we're going to look at the investment that goes along with developing those kinds of services. So gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about voice first. Can you draw on your experience in your particular businesses to project forward and talk about how the voice market may develop in Myanmar? Marut?
That is a good question for me. But I have to put it this way. I'm not a mobile guy, I'm the voice guy, like my friend that sharing in the seminar. The interesting story about Myanmar is something like this country is in the midst for many years, and suddenly it just opened up. And the way it opened up is so fast to predict about the future. But what I'm going to share is about what I'm doing with Myanmar market in the voice. For the voice market itself in Myanmar, I have to say that most of the revenue come from the inbound traffic into Myanmar. Maybe I can say that the traffic itself is the same to the money flow into Myanmar. We have to think about that. Most of the traffic coming from some country that you might know by your experience, For example, Thailand. Thailand is the neighboring country to Myanmar. We are sharing many things in common with Myanmar. Similar population, 16 million something, right? And the country itself, we share a lot of in common in history. And surprisingly, can anyone guess how many Vietnamese people working and living in Thailand? There's no reward, but just the thinking. First time, maybe my guess is about 1 million. Do you think it's okay? 1 million? Anybody would like to share? 2 million? Oh, still quiet. Actually, the prediction is about 3 million. Amazing. 3 million Vietnamese people living and working in Thailand. And as you know, the AC is coming up about 2 years. So it might be hard for me to imagine how much more revenue and traffic will come from that opportunity. So just to wrap up the answer to your question, I think the voice market itself in Myanmar still growing up for both inbound and outbound. Inbound itself is there, but the national traffic itself, it relies pretty much on the mobile network that we have to see, wait and see.
Okay, thank you. Subhash.
I think it's quite clear that after Myanmar have three more operators, after the mobile subscribers ramping up, it's sure that the growth of the voice, not only domestically but internationally, will certainly pile up. And despite new technology in the futures, even though we can still see the voice go into the data, but I'm sure that the incremental subscribers will, in the first 3 to 4 years, will still run faster than the substitution of the voice over data.
Thank you. Professor, what do you think?
Yes, actually, this kind of question is quite classic for me. Just actually, when I first time came here, I think it's about 20 years ago, just everything here is so expensive, even so voice per minute. Actually, it's some kind of unbelievable to pay that much that time, and anyhow, I need to pay that. So then the voice market here, I think, is keep going up, right, as we know, but then we will experience about face about the kind of voice over IP service. This is kind of big competitor for the, let's say, the voice market. If you talk about the TDM voice service, so then I think it's, to keep the growth of the voice market here, I think you should still maintain the good quality of service. So you need to keep some kind of competitive price for the market and also for the customer.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Let's broaden that idea about what the future is going to look like, and talk about international traffic patterns in general. How do you see where traffic is coming from, going to, particularly data, I think. Where is Myanmar going to be looking? Warud?
The traffic pattern. Actually, I know quite a lot about voice, but when we're talking about data, I have to think in a different way. Because for voice, it's simply about where is the community in other country, right? It's quite simple to think about that. That okay, our relative, maybe they work in Thailand, they have to call back to relative in Myanmar. That's the way the voice traffic goes. But for data, the traffic pattern itself, I think in the beginning, it still rely on the allowed content. That it also depends on the regulator, how they allow the people to get access to the content. But for me personally, I'm thinking about the financial things, the money flow. A few years ago, I visited Myanmar by by the invitation from the MPG. And surprisingly to know that I could not use the credit card here. We have to rely on the cash. And if you would like to do the credit card, you have to go to the specific point, something like a specific hotel. And the link, the data link itself with the hotel itself, is not going to Thailand, it's going to Malaysia or Singapore. So I have to say that currently, most of the data traffic will go to some country, something like Singapore and Malaysia. That might be my opinion on this.
Subhash, what do you think?
Yeah, for data growth, I think it depends on the foreign investment or more as well. And, but regardless of that, I think we can see clearly that Myanmar is open up to countries, and there will certainly be more and more foreign investment coming in. I think that's one clear source of data requirement. However, in the future, we can also foresee that if cloud-based service is growing and successful in development, because currently it's still quite not clear, but it's cloud-based services everywhere. But if cloud-based really take off successfully globally, maybe data requirement, international private circuit may not be required that much. But instead, IP transit traffic should be growing rapidly.
Thank you. Prasad, I'd like particularly to get a local view on this. I'm interested to know what kind of content Myanmar people are interested in, because then we can perhaps work out where it's coming from.
Yeah, actually, if you let's say about the application that mostly the Myanmar people use here, I think you can get easily. Actually, it's Facebook is the most popular one. I think I don't know why. Actually, Myanmar people really love Facebook. And then, as I see the kind of more than 60% of my data bandwidth used for the Facebook. And then, from that point, we need to prepare our own, backbone or kind of bandwidth to serve this kind of customer. So for the pricing, I think now we can, afford for that price, we can provide the service to consumer, let's say. But anyhow, we just expect that in the future, the price which should be coming down after the new telecom law release for the international gateway.
So Facebook, I think you're implying that would be internal, that would be domestic traffic from two people within Myanmar?
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
But
also the international also.
Well, yes. I mean, first of all, Warud drew attention to the fact that there are Myanmar people living outside of the country, and it sounds like that could be significant numbers. Also, I wanted to watch my favourite Myanmar rock band, Iron Cross, and it was posted by somebody in the United States. So I was watching YouTube and downloading content from, well, maybe it was cached in Singapore, but certainly outside of the country. What do you think about that aspect?
You mean the kind of local content here?
I mean that even though Facebook, even though social networking appears to be internal, there may be traffic that's actually coming from outside.
Like actually on our leg port, I didn't see much domestic like a high bandwidth needed between kind of application in the country. But actually mainly they just use the international bandwidth for that kind of application.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from the floor on where content is coming from, where the traffic, how the traffic patterns are likely to change? We'll have some people from the other. Okay. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
You heard me earlier. I have a question actually. We have two gentlemen at the time. Do you have any estimates as to how much international voice traffic is carried over traditional CDO networks, and how much of it is bypassed by our over-the-top applications in Thailand?
That's right. It's very difficult to measure that. However, we can see the decline of the, at least very clear thing is the SMS, at least 10% each year, and it's growing. In Thailand, amazingly, is communication like Line, OTT like Line is very popular. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not, but is Thailand people have #2 in the world in terms of the Line subscribers next to Japan. So the more smartphone penetration in took place in Thailand, I think the more traffic will go into OTT. So like in Myanmar case, people leapfrog into 3G networks, and people start using more of the smartphone. Then, like I mentioned earlier, that voice traffic may not be necessarily in the GDM or conventional basis, going to the data. And especially in the future, Thailand, we can see now that if you start at 4G LTE, that's even worse. Because if you enable OTT, a lot more easier to access and more effective use of voice over LTE.
Sorry?
Yeah. Actually, you asked the same question that we did discuss with my colleague yesterday about how the Myanmar traffic will be in the next few years. That is the debate between me and my colleague, how it be. Let me ask you one question. What do you think about the Vietnamese people? Are they going to be the same with the Filipino? I will call, we have the Filipino model, or there will be the Thailand model. To clarify the model, the Filipino model itself is about the people. Most of the people in Philippines, they do not talk to each other. They texting, right? That is the Filipino model, and the revenue itself is coming from the outside countries. That is the Filipino model. Thailand model, or maybe the common model, is people still keep talking. And thanks to the, the network in Myanmar itself is still starting up, right? It's not stable yet. So the basic communication will still rely pretty much on the TDM communications. So what is the case? So if you pick the Filipino model, we have to open the live application and social application, and then you can see Vietnamese people texting, do some like right, with the people like us. But from my experience, there are some people say, I think I talked with my colleague from Malaysia, they compare the worker from Thailand and Myanmar. They say that Thailand is no good. They just drinking. But for Vietnamese, they are the family worker. They call a lot.
Well, I think probably Prasit is more of an expert than Rob on Myanmar usage. So, what do you think, Prasit? Myanmar people, are they texters, or are they going to continue to want to speak, or maybe even use video conference?
Actually, I would say it's not only me as a foreigner here, but also the kind of my friend, even my colleague, or even young generation. I just think that they feel familiar to use like a text all the time. Even myself now, I never talk, I just send my text. And also, if possible, to get like a line or Viber, I prefer to use that way also. Because of, voice, even voice is charging here is more expensive. But how frequently you use, I think it's that you always use very quick. And then you get more, you need to pay more for that kind of thing. But anyhow, I think it's, most people here just learn to text also.
Okay, I think, regardless of how the usage turns out and the traffic patterns, what is very clear from this conference is that there is going to be new investment required, and I would certainly suggest that it's not going to be simply investment required in the terrestrial domestic sector. I think that there is going to be investment required in the international sector. So how do you guys think that the international wholesale market is going to react to that requirement? Are we going to see AT&T coming in here, or is it going to be more of a regional response? Why don't we start with Subhash?
I can talk on behalf of Thailand as a neighboring country. I think from my previous comments that if we can see the growth of the corporate segments from foreign investment here, certainly from data perspective, Thailand cross borders would be a very good alternative. If, especially taking into account the current situation of the subsea cable stability, and look into the near future, the availability of the new cable system. However, I think that there can always be the terrestrial network should become more and more good alternative for international connectivity for Myanmar.
Warut, what do you think? Regional, or might be the global players coming in?
Question is good. I'm still thinking about how to respond to your question. Put it this way, because I attend the presentation from Telenor, right, and Ooredoo. They said that even the mobile licensing competition is about 92, right, if I remember correctly. So there is no doubt about how serious the wholesale carrier. And you can see the people here coming from Hong Kong, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan. We are gathering here for what? Because we are thinking that there are some opportunity that still remain for us. Even we know that Telenor and Ooredoo, they want to bid. So not even AT&T, most of the carriers are keeping an eye. Even we don't want to bid yet, but hopefully someday there will be a chance that we can get into or be doing some partnership with the bidding winner. Yes.
Prasad, from your point of view, do you have any preference to see whether it is a regional response or a response from the global operators investing in?
Actually, from my point of view, either regional provider or global provider, it seems to me now is the main kind of important part is the transmission line. Everyone can provide like IP bandwidth or IP port on another cable, but how about to get the link from Myanmar to that port? So actually now Myanmar have only, let's say, CVV3 and also some kind of cross-border link, right, to either Thailand, China, and also India or Bangladesh. So even that, all these kind of cable, I think is not enough, right? And then I think it's if possible, I think you should have like a license to some private company to lay down the private, submarine cable or border link cable. So more and more connectivity is good. I think that one is needed now for Myanmar actually.
I'd like to come back to that in just a second and talk about submarine versus terrestrial versus satellite, but I just wonder, is the Belgacom representative here, Newton? He's hiding under a chair now. No, okay, I just wanted to see if I could get a global operator to speak.
Yeah, I think he has to catch a plane.
Okay. Let's talk then about...
We do have a different global provider here.
Of course.
It's being a very nice competitor of ours. What is your question?
We are wondering whether the required investment in international connectivity will come from regional operators, or whether the global operators will also have an interest in Myanmar.
Oh, well, I mean, global operators have a major interest. BICS is one of them, obviously, but typically the investment for CME5 is going to be a major decision. And I'm sure that between all the global operators interested in getting into Myanmar, it will happen very soon, by 2015. On top of that, clearly, with the internet needs that is expected in this country, the terrestrial link will increase as well, and yeah, you will have major investment from global operators.
I'm going to make you regret standing up now, because I wonder if you can say when when CME-V5 will be ready for service.
By 2015, it's hopefully. Well, but even as important about the main subject of this panel, the voice market, I think it's very important to protect the value of the voice market for Myanmar. I mean, you know, it's a source of currency for the country. I think it is very important that the regulator protect that market, and that each operator, not only MPT but also the new entrants, protect the value of that market. And I know that global operators such as BICS, Telenor, Orange, or Ooredoo, we are totally dedicated to that, protect the value. I mentioned it because you know, many others, very often you have bypass or fraud phenomena, and the country has to be protected from that. Today it is the case.
Okay, so if you could just yes, okay, well, why don't we ask the gentleman from Telenor to comment?
Thank you very much. I was very happy to be in the last session with the lawyers and see that International Gateway is in the license. There was a question about that. I also saw the disclaimers, of course. I will not hang you if it's not in there. But Telenor will definitely set up an international gateway in Myanmar as soon as possible.
Thank you. Just coming back to, another question, yes, please.
I'm Sam from Lawrence Study. I have different, I'd like to share where's the one local operator coming to the market. For me, I think it depends on where the investor come from. If there will be a lot of investors from US or Europe, then definitely US, Europe connectivity provider coming in.
You mean investment in other sectors, not just telecom?
Not the telecom. So I just need a time from AT&T because they have a lot of visitors coming in. So he needs a roaming service. So the data, the connectivity will be the same. If a lot of US company need the connectivity to the US, the international company have to come in. If it's a lot of company from Japan who have a factory here, manufacturing here, they need a connectivity to Japan. So Japanese company will come in. Yeah. So that's my view.
Really, thank you very, very much for your question. I mean, I'm sure, I promise we have no relationship, we don't know each other at all. That's exactly what we announced yesterday. Orange is extremely happy to open the roaming on it's roaming up to Myanmar, and we signed actually this morning with AT&T. Actually, it was yesterday night, this morning. AT&T representative left for a tour of Myanmar because they had finished its roaming job. And because it's signed with us, so yeah, you have a full connectivity now with the US, AT&T, you have a full connectivity with most of the Japan operators, and as well as some all the Taiwanese operators as well. It's the first thing that has been taken care of by MPT.
Can I just come back to the panel on the question about protecting the existing voice? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I think in our early discussion, we were almost discounting that because the amount of outgoing traffic is going to increase, and so you know the net payments are going to reduce. So, do you agree with the gentleman from Orange that this is something that should be protected? I guess MPT would be the one to benefit most from that.
I think certainly, I totally agree with that. I think there are still some bypassing things, but maybe different definition, as we can see from the international arena, that I think the past year you get sort of a VoIP license with a certain commitment that should be able to kind of help protect the market and legitimize most of the international voice. However, I think there's still some black markets going on which also destroy the market. And another thing that I would like to voice out for Myanmar, and I think it's already mentioned in several presentations since yesterday, and also from the previous presentation, is that the interconnection regime, especially when you have more than one operators, that if this can be regulated well, it will help the situation of the voice market to be healthier. In Thailand, we have had regulators for several years. However, the interconnection regime, the regulator pushed to the negotiation among operators themselves, which caused how to say, not level playing field. So the big fish eats small fish. And it stir up the whole market, that it has discriminating price and no clear verification and monitoring things. Then the traffic from outside, it has several ways to bypass the legitimate route of the traffic. So if interconnection charge regime is clear, well regulated, with a clear monitoring system, and then that would help Myanmar in the connection as well as the international voice traffic to be able to grow healthy.
Prasad, can you just address the question of protecting voice traffic from a local perspective, and perhaps also address the issue of interconnect? What's your experience?
Actually, I came from the data side. Actually, my point is everything is data. And then now, I think mainly we use all the internet bandwidth. And let's say internet protocol. Everything can pass over this kind of protocol. And then even voice or whatever data. So on my part, I think is, I don't see why we need to protect the voice market here. I mean, and not only here, I think internationally also. But everything is going to move forward for data, right? And then everything is going to be over IP. So instead of kind of maintain this kind of service, so we should just try to find more and more bandwidth, how to bring down the cost of the internet bandwidth like that to help another kind of go up another kind of business like a voice over IP. And anyhow, we need to have like a regulation on that kind of service also. But this is going to be the new.
And interconnect, what are your thoughts about interconnect?
I don't see much interconnection problem, but actually each country still have like that kind of switch or whatever to convert between new world and old world, like that,
Okay.
And then that kind of thing. I think this would happen soon. I would say again, it's one market. Let's say about PDM voice is no longer business in the future.
Warren, I know you probably want to say something about it. Alexander, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, just to complete what you said, that it's to the beneficial not of the incumbent but of all the mobile operators of their customers, because voice by definition you call the mobile holders, the customer of the mobile operator. That's the one. And so out of those 4 million, 60 million, most of the future customer of voice with value will be mobile customers. So they will be from Telenor, from Ooredoo, some from GT as well, mostly. And two, the service they will receive is minutes, from abroad, credit of minutes, the top-ups, the prepaid minutes. So it will not be a call, but a credit of minutes on their mobile phone. That's now a service that is provided by most of the global operators, and so it will be extremely practical. So it's really for the customers, not for the companies.
Thank you very much. Warren, what will be your thoughts?
Actually, we are talking with many topics, right? For only one single question. The first question it comes from the, shall we protect the investment on the submarine cable CME-V5? And then we came with the interconnection charge. Actually, we are talking with the same story, but in a different point of view. Let me walk you through this way. Myanmar actually is a good country, and it's still in the beginning. So the future is still waiting for you to be written. So the way to rule the market, or the way to guide the market, you can study from other country. Maybe you can pick up Thailand, pick up Laos and Cambodia. Let me pick up Thailand for example. Maybe you can support with the support on how the interconnection play a big role on the investment. Let's say that the question is about the regulation. How many mobile operators in Myanmar should be the proper one? That's the first question. And the second one, can the mobile operator operate the international gateway by themselves? It can be dependent or independent. That is another question. And then we come with the tariff control. That from the previous sentence, I think that it's still not clear, right? It's still thinking, not the clear decision yet. But it's at the point. It happened in Thailand, it happened in Cambodia. Most of the regulators try to protect the consumer pretty much, but somehow they don't think about the competition. The way they are regulate, they're trying to set the selling price in order to protect the operator to oversell to the consumer. But in behind, operators have to fight with each other in order to gain the market share. That came the price war. So the good thing for the regulation in Myanmar, I might suggest to think about how to set the floor price step by step, year by year. And then it will come to the protection on the investment on even the infrastructure, tower cable, submarine cable, land connectivity. That is the key issue that we have to think about. Otherwise, you will have the exciting market like in Thailand. We compete to death.
I hope the regulator's listening. I think it's true to say I have worked in many emerging markets, and when the market starts to open up, the cost of the international bandwidth as a percentage of what the retail user is paying is huge. But when enough competition is introduced into the international segment, those prices come down extremely rapidly, which is obviously to the benefit of the end user. So let's just consider what the options are for increasing international connectivity. I'd like to ask the panel for their views on the benefits and disadvantages of new submarine cables versus terrestrial connections versus satellite. Prasad, would you like to start?
Well, as I say, just like for the transmission, you have a choice, right? Just like a submarine cable, the cross-border link, and also the satellite. But I'm not very much agree on using satellite as a normal link. But mainly satellite should use for the kind of backup purpose or kind of disaster recovery, something like that. So, but look at the kind of whatever inland cable or just submarine cable. Actually, it's still not enough for Myanmar point of view. Just have limited, kind of link between border and also even the submarine cable we rely on CMV3 only. But most of the case, I think every 2 months, I would say just the cable always cut, and then I don't know, just try to solve. But anyhow, we rely mainly all the traffic just rely on CMV3, right? And also for the inland transmission, whatever cable or microwave, I think it's still not enough also. So for huge demand in the future for internet, I would say submarine cable is kind of reasonable choice to invest, but anyhow it's quite like a high investment. So to do that, sometimes we need to rely on like a consortium, right? To do kind of submarine cable, need to invest something. But if possible, the government should license to private company to invest on private submarine cable, right? We can say like from Yangon to Thailand or Yangon to Singapore, kind of that thing, to increase more alternative link for the Myanmar to reach the outside world, just not rely only on the CMU3 only. Yeah, this is my.
Thank you. Subhash?
I think the first consideration that we should take is that where would you like to link to? So as the Myanmar traffic is growing, you probably can see that, especially for IP transit, the internet, where would Myanmar would like to link to? Where is the point of interconnect that you would like to link to the source of the contents? In Thailand case, we know that the point of interconnection that we would like to link to is basically Singapore and Hong Kong, where international carrier get together there, as well as a several exchange, and also the content, which is the content where our subscribers access to. Then we determine that what means to connect to those points of interconnect. In Thailand case, I think we certainly would like to utilize what we have in Thailand, as is subsea. However, due to the situation that cannot enable us to be able to justify using subsea cable to interconnect, then True is a pioneer in Thailand that we build our own network terrestrially to the southern part of Thailand via Malaysia to connect in Singapore. And this has been proven that the stability is quite well. We have been zero outage for several years in a row, and last year just few minutes. However, in Myanmar case, it also depends on several factors. If you, in the future, if the content that you want to access is just neighboring, maybe you don't need to do the submarine cable. One key thing about this advantage of the submarine cable is first is the high investment. Secondly is the risk that you have to take with during the implementation and evolvement of the technology that can drive the supply to be over by just changing the equipment. The same fiber core can have a lot more capacity. So it really depends on what's going to develop in the future. But the key principle is that you have to determine that where you would like to have the interconnection link to, and then determine the options that you have.
That's a great point, Subhash. I think what I've seen in many markets is cost of IP transit is a very important part of the equation. But the spread of IPXs around the world is bringing that cost down. So wherever there is a collection of the international IP transit operators, and you compare with them, and that's actually an interesting change that I've noticed in the market over the last few years, is that originally you could only peer with a big operator if you had a similar volume of traffic, but that is changing. So the opportunities to get into an IPX and save money, I think they're much greater now. Warren, what do you think? Submarine, satellite, terrestrial?
This question is a tricky one. If we're talking about the normal case, normal country, yeah, it should be like that one. Submarine is a big funding. You have to put into the consortium one, but satellite, normally we are using for the backup and disaster recovery. Land cable is quite good, but Myanmar is quite unique one. That I have to think carefully about your question. What should be the proper solution for Myanmar? I can see somebody smiling on what I'm saying, right? Put it this way, because I have been working for my CAT and I have been in cooperation with NPT for many years. And from my experience, I have one story to tell about. In the year 2009, if I am not wrong. Myanmar was hit by the cyclone Nagis. At that time, there was about a month outage on the telecommunications infrastructure in Myanmar. And CAT, we was helping MPT by doing the diversify by the land cable. Luckily, that we still have the land cable. And we still use the satellite. Even if the expensive one, but at that time, any mean of the connectivity still count. So we open up the more land cable about the STM. At that time, it's about STM4. Thankfully to the project about the GMS Great Mekong project, that we still utilize the land cable to be Myanmar, Thailand, and we can make the commission through to Malaysia and to Singapore and then to the global. And satellite play the important role in the rural area in Myanmar. So, if the situation is quite normal, I have to say that submarine should be the good way. But my heart is still keeping question about the regulation issue. If the investment is there, still profitable, okay, submarine cable should be the good one, right? Should be the good solution because it's a huge bandwidth to deploy. But if the regulation is not quite clear, I may have to pick the safe solution, maybe the land cable, because it's easier and we have invested already. For the submarine cable, you have to think about how to sell to the dual licensing. Are they going to implement by their own? What would be the price they are going to buy from you? It's quite a tricky one.
Okay, gentlemen, I think we have to, I've got one last question to wrap up the session, but I think we've covered a lot of ground and we've given people, I think, a lot to think about in terms of voice traffic, data traffic, investment, types of international transmission. And I'm already looking forward to continuing this conversation at Myanmar Connect 2014. So I hope you gentlemen will also be here in 12 months' time. What do you expect to see will have changed in the international connectivity market for Myanmar in the next 12 months? Prasid?
Actually, for me, after foreigner, we just work here quite a long time already, and I see many things change for Myanmar, let's say about telecom market here. Actually, when you start to come here, I mean, let's say in Namido, for the first time I came here, I cannot do anything. Even, mobile phone, internet, whatever I cannot use here at that time. And then when the, world change and everything open, and then you can start more and more kind of thing for this country. And then even now we're gonna release kind of a telecom law, and then that one is, I think is for my point of view, just still have anything to do for Myanmar in terms of many areas, even in the telecom business and in the telecom industry. So the thing is, we need to get, like the government need to give the license to the company or person to implement and bring up all kind of telecom services here in Myanmar. And I do hope as the population and also greenfield market, I think Myanmar is kind of a nice country to invest on kind. Mainly, I would say it's a telecom industry, and then I think after that we can move forward to another sector of the business. Yeah, I think I just would to say welcome for Myanmar.
Thank you. Supash.
If you look into by the end of next year, I think the new network will probably be available in the 1 year time, but the take-up rate of the subscriber to be able to generate more traffic will not be there yet in the next year. But I can see that the growth of at least from the internet, should be from the internet penetration through the PC and also from the inbound roamers if MPT start data roaming now, that would be another source of data usage to generate more usage in Myanmar, and then we can certainly see the IP transit growth for sure. But the next year, the year after 14, after more and more mobile broadband coming up, especially in 3G, certainly we can see that there are several technology like an M2M application, video streaming, what else? Mobile banking, cloud service. Those will be the leapfrog for the users in Myanmar to jumpstart in using wireless broadband via the mobile link network. That I cannot say right now how much it would be, but I believe it's going to be tremendous growth after year 2014. So at that time, I believe that the interconnection that we are talking today may not be relevant. And there may be some environment change, and that let's talk again next year.
Okay. Maruk, you have the last word, so everyone will remember your prediction.
Good, right? Don't count on me. I'm the white person. I'm not the data or mobile like my colleagues. But what I'm going to say is about, it doesn't matter about how it's going to be, because everybody have their own answer in your heart, right? And I can see from your face, we are hoping that this country will develop in the proper way, and in the sense of the arrangement and also the environment that we are talking about. And new licensee is coming up. New licensee is coming up. It means it's more people coming through, at least to get some part of the competition or the bidding. So there is no doubt that why don't we have the next Myanmar Connect in the next year or in the next few years. And when we compare this event with other events, something like Asian Carrier in Philippines, right? It just started from 2006, about 150%. And then how many people attend this year? Over 1,000.
1,300.
Okay. So I have no doubt in my heart that next year it might be double of the delegate coming through, because they will be exciting like me, that I'm feeling that there are so many opportunities to explore in Myanmar, and we hope that we can explore more cities rather than Naypyidaw. That is my prediction. Maybe just the pinpoint, Mandalay should be the next city.
Okay. That's for you to take away. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed, and thank you also to the audience. You've been great, the questions have been wonderful. I very much enjoyed moderating this session, and thank you for the opportunity, Capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I say thank you, I just wanted to talk about the running order for the rest of the afternoon. We're going to have a quick refresh of the room, and in 5 minutes' time, the Deloitte Consultancy Clinic will start in here. I know you all had a lot of questions, started by Rob and Nick here, so you will have the opportunity to pose them to a full panel of 5 experts in 5 minutes' time. And then we have the great honour of having HG, Deputy Minister here of the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology, and he will officially close the conference at 5 p.m. So thank you all, and hold your seats. We'll be back with you in 5 minutes' time. Thank you.